Welcome, TIL Nation, to the fourth episode of our Pastor's Perspective podcast, where we talk to our pastor and leader on different current events that's going on in the world. Today, though, we took a detour on our regular scheduled programming, and we have two special guests with us here today. Ms. Ruth and Mr. Bernard are two former police officers. So we want them here today. They're going to give us some background story of some of the things that they've experienced as policemen, especially with what's going on today with Mr. Floyd, the Ahmaud Arbery case, and even Miss Breonna Taylor. So how y'all doing today?
Doing good.
I'm doing just great, sir.
Thank you. I'm glad to have you. Let's get right to it. Ms. Ruth, what made you want to be a police officer in the first place? What was it that attracted you to the force?
Well, what attracted me to the force was my mother's brother was a police officer in Jessup, Georgia. And I can remember as far back as maybe 12 years old, I used to love to see him walk through the door. And there was something about that uniform that made me wanted to become a police officer and join the military. And I looked up at him one day and I said, "Uncle, when I get old enough, I'm going to the military." And he said, "Oh, you stop teasing, girl." But it came true. And it's just a passion.
As an African-American woman being on the police force, did you experience any racism as far as your fellow officers?
From day one. But when I was in the military, I had already prepared myself. So when I got out of the military and retired from the military, I decided I'm going to join the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office, and I gave it a try. And so I went on and I applied, and I was hired. But what a lot of them didn't know was that I was already prepared to take the task at hand. And from day one, the racism that I felt on me was the fact that my training officer, he was a 25-year-old kid, and he had already heard about me. Now, believe it or not, once you enter into police training, they already know your background, they know your history, they know who you are. So I was already ready and prepared. So my first beat was 45th and Moncrief. Now that is an area where what I grew up in. He didn't even know the area, but he was there. They're really not there they're there to train you, but they're also there to fail you or see what you are made out of, see whether you're strong enough to take the task. I wind up showing him the ropes in Zone 5, which is 45th and Moncrief.
Mr. Bernard,
Yes.
with the history with African American males and the police, what was it that made you want to join the force?
Well, for me, I just came back home from Iraq. I was in the Army, okay? And just to be completely honest with you, I missed the excitement that the war gave me from ambushes and things of that nature. It may sound crazy, but it's an adrenaline rush that you get from that nothing else could really give you. So, in all honesty, I was still chasing that adrenaline rush when I got back home. So I figured the closest thing to combat overseas would be law enforcement.
Did you experience any racism from your fellow officers?
Not really from my fellow officers. I experienced it out there with some of the people I dealt with, but I can't say I really experienced it too heavily with my fellow officers.
Ms. Ruth, going back to what you said, we had a 25-year-old white kid who was policing a black neighborhood, and you had to come and give him some pointers. Is that one of the problems that causes this tension between police and African Americans because they don't know the community that they're policing?
Yes, they are actually, they're like I said, they're not to really help, but to hinder. And yes, that is one of the problems. But like I said, he didn't know the area. I knew the area from the front, from the back. And he actually, I'll say about 4 weeks into my training with him, he looked at me one day and he said, "You know, I'm not supposed to tell you this." but they told me to try everything I can to not let you pass.
I love that, Ms. Ruth, and I'm going to chime in real quick.
Yes, sir.
There's two things that I've heard from both of you. Both of you experienced military before you went into the force.
Correct.
And I guess from a perspective of our young African American male and females, I guess from a perspective, your home schooling, your home training that you got from your parents and your homes and things of that nature played a major role in who you are and who you became, but also that extra discipline and that extra push that you got in the military. How did that kind of affect you with navigating through some of the tension, what you said with the young man that kind of I'm here to help you fail, and even some of the things that maybe you experienced in the community. My point is that one of the things that's really missing in our society with our younger people, it is that discipline edge, that kind of stick-to-itiveness that I've been brought up, I've been taught, I've been schooled, and that kind of helped them endure these troubles and trials. How did that help? Or any one of you can jump in on that.
Well, I had two strict parents. Mm-hmm. My father was a Baptist minister, 9 kids, and I'm telling you, he instilled in us, like, when you go out into that world, they're going to be blacks, whites, on both ends will try to, discredit you.
Sure.
But you got to be ready for the task at hand.
That's good.
And so being in the military even made it more stronger and in debt.
Sure.
Because I know that in the military, I mean, I'm telling you, I was a weapons person, and I was trained to know how to put a weapon together at a certain amount of time. I knew a lot of things in the military. I was a broadcast journalism person, and I did a lot of things. I had a lot of things under my belt, but my background, my home background, and my upbringing, and also the military taught me a lot to be strong.
Sure.
Because you're going to face people from all walks of life. Mm-hmm. And that's one thing about JSO. I learned that people I didn't see color. I saw people from all walks of life.
Right.
And when I saw you, and I see you, say you Caucasian, you black, I didn't see color. Mm-hmm. I never have seen color.
Right.
But I've always, watched my back on a lot of things. And that prepared my mind and soul to know the difference about how to handle people and things like that. Like I said, I grew up on 21st of Moncrief, but I frequent 45th, up and down. That's a long road.
I got you. Frequent.
Yes,
I
frequent that.
I got you.
So what he didn't know, I already knew.
Sure. Bernard, you want to tee that up?
Okay, well, with the military, like Miss Ruth was saying, I dealt with all sorts of people, all sorts of races, creeds, whatever it is. So being in the military, I learned how to deal with all these people. So when I went out on the streets, it was not something new dealing with somebody that's would say really country, or someone that's really hood, or someone that's super proper or whatever.
Right.
I've dealt with that already through the military.
Sure.
And to your point about discipline, it also gave me the discipline to see through the police academy, because basic training is much harder for me than it was police academy. So by the time I got to police academy, I was able to breeze through that because of my military discipline.
Right.
And that's really about it.
That's good. No, you good.
You good?
He was like his mid-thought. He was like, never mind. but I guess the point, and I'm gonna bounce the ball back over to Angelo, is that the what we're talking about is the situation. Of course, we understand what happened with Mr. Floyd, and so unfortunate. And this systemic racism problem is nothing new to America. It's something that we was born in. It's what we hear. It's what we deal with. It's what the foundation of this country. It was discovered. It was discovered. With people already here. But be that as it may. But my point is, while we are working towards a change, while we're working towards bringing about legislation and doing all this to where we can all be on equal footing, since it is stained, America is stained with this systemic problem of racism. My point is the discipline that you all acquire, be it, you made mention of your father being a Baptist minister, and then both of you coming through the military and getting the type of things you needed. you still dealt with the same thing everyone else dealt with,
Right.
but you made mention, you said your mind was different. And so my point is it's a teaching moment for me, is I'm saying that a lot of times we steer our children and we say, well, this is what's wrong with the world and this is what's wrong with people, but we don't do the due diligence and instilling in them the discipline that they need. There's going to be people out there that's not like you, that they see color. It's people like you that when they see you coming, they're going to try to help you fail or whatever the case may be. So that's the point I want to build on. That they're just saying that it's a problem, and that's not glossing over the problem, but more so just us being conditioned. I didn't get an opportunity to go to the military, but by the time I got done with Camp Marie, which is my mama name, by the time I got done with that, I felt like I was in. They used to call my house Rayford. My friend Jamel Jones, who probably checked this out, he used to say, "Man, I used to always go to this house and spend the night." He didn't want to come to my house because it was Rayford. We couldn't say lie, couldn't say fart, couldn't say nothing. Can I say fart on pastor perspective? It's my perspective. I can say poot, I guess. But they instilled in me discipline. I feel like this vigilante spirit that we're seeing, this all of this burning and this fighting and all this stuff, and now we understand the cause. We understand the root cause of what they're angry. We all are angry. All are hurt about what's going on. But the point is that we're seeing a generation. I'm not painting with a broad stroke, y'all, so send all hate mail to D'Angelo. But I'm not painting with a broad stroke, but we are seeing a society and we are seeing a generation that's missed that type of discipline, missed that type of instruction. I see you with your boys all the time. That does my heart good because I was finally seeing a daddy, and there's others, but it does my heart good. You saying, man, sit down, or you thump them or do whatever you need to do. Being that figure, as my daddy told me, say, son, I'm gonna beat the brakes off you now, so they not gonna beat the brakes off you later. And that's my only point. I think we're missing that in that generation. Anybody want to chime in on that, or Angela, you can come back in?
Well, I have to agree with you. And one thing my dad told me is nobody can control you, son.
Right.
You got to control yourself. So you
racist, all it don't matter. Go ahead.
Right. So whether someone call me out my name or whatever somebody does to me, it's my choice how I react to
That's
it.
good.
And if I let somebody steer me, and then you're no better than for lack of a better term, you're like a slave still, because you're letting somebody steer your emotions and make you do this, you control you.
Sure, very good.
And I got that from my father, who was also in the military, and that was also instilled in me through the military.
Awesome.
I want to go like Pastor spoke on the Floyd, Mr. Floyd's case, that this video that's circling around. It hurts to even watch.
Yes.
I hear a lot of where you don't know what happened before the camera cut on, right? And I say, okay, well, that's true. Is there anything that you guys think could have happened before the camera even came on that justifies what happened?
Well, my heart tells me no. I believe whatever that camera, whatever it showed, the moment that we saw it is exactly. Now, what I saw was they claimed that he went into the store with a $20 fake bill. My take on that is he probably didn't even know it was a fake $20 bill. And what I saw was going into the store, bringing him out, and I saw that he was already cuffed. But my heart tells me no. I think he just took him out. There he is on the ground, cuffed him, and knee went down.
I try to think of the worst case scenario. Let's say, this is hypothetical, let's say Mr. Floyd was resisting arrest before the camera came on. By the time his knee was on the neck, he was already subdued, if you will. He was already in handcuff. You already got the guy. You had another 3 officers on him. Yep. I didn't see where it was necessary for him to apply that much force against his neck, especially when he was telling you that he couldn't breathe. Sure. And he said it for a good 8 minutes. So no, there's no way I could really see them being justified or how they treated Mr. Floyd.
Sure. Go ahead, Ms. Ruth.
And I was going to say, Ed, what really bothers me, besides the officer placing his knee on his neck, was you had 3 other officers standing there. Right. Now, as a retired police officer, and we were taught that in a situation, similar to that, if that happens, you just don't stand around. You just don't stand around and allow someone to kill another person because it won't be justified. And that just burned me to the core.
Sure. And I think, as you said, Ms. Ruth, you alluded to a shaky story at best prior to the a shaky story at best.
Yes.
You know, with the counterfeit 20, I heard bad check, I heard
check,
all kinds of things. And even as you said, even if whatever transpired, it did not. I don't care if he printed the $20 bill in his trunk when the ink was still wet and he walked in.
Right.
No human being should be treated that way. The way that he was
Amen.
treated and what we saw. So I mean that regardless of what transpired before then, I mean what we saw and what transpired, I mean that is it's mind blowing. I physically got sick watching that video. I mean at first I couldn't even finish watching it, but I made myself finish watching it because of how detrimental it is.
And that's what I want to ask about the other cops, because Mr. Floyd is not the first time we've seen this, unfortunately. And it's not the first time we've seen other cops to be silent. What is that? What is the brotherhood that keeps other cops from saying that was wrong? He shouldn't have done that. Or even saying, hey man, get off his neck. He's already handcuffed. Why do we continue to see silent cops? Because in my opinion, that just that allows it to continue to happen, knowing that we have a brotherhood. And this my partner was here, but he ain't gonna say what really happened. What is that about? Or is there even a brotherhood? Or are these cops looking at saying he was right? Because sometimes I'm curious, are they really justifying what they seen, or are they saying, well, this is my brother, he's a cop, and I'm not gonna tell on him?
Now mind you, you already have your body camera on. Everything is being filmed, so you had to be either all crazy or just plain stupid. I mean, with no regards to human life.
She said either all crazy. Or what was the other one? Plain stupid. Just all
plain
A or B. All crazy or just plain
Yeah.
stupid. What is you, boy? My granddad said, what ail you, boy?
Well, I think some guys want to keep silent to try to keep trust with other police officers.
Right.
But in the case of Mr. Floyd, I can't see how another officer could sit there and see him losing his life and say nothing. And I think it stemmed from them looking at him less than a human being.
Right.
And that's where it comes from. I think, and some officers also look at people that they're serving as enemy combatants. Right. That's another part of the military, some probably part of the military, and that's something that you probably didn't want to leave behind. This is not a war zone. You're policing people. And if you're able to look at somebody as less than human or an enemy combatant, you don't care if they live or die.
Sure.
And that's what it appeared to be.
Let's speak to that if you can, and I'm going to bounce it back over to Angelo. Just the mindset or the training involved that comes if you can. If I know you trekked a little bit from that time when you was on the force and all of that. But my point is, speak to the mindset from your vantage point or from your perspective when it comes to you was on the streets policing and you come into an altercation. As you said, is it seek and destroy? And I know that I don't want to paint the narrative that all police officers have this mindset. I never was on the force. I don't know the training. I don't know what they tell you, what they say. So just can you just share some light on some rookies like myself and other people who's watching? What is the mindset to kind of de-escalate this situation?
Okay, well, I think it's different when you first start versus when you become more seasoned. Mm-hmm. When I first started, I was gung ho, like I told you earlier. I just came home from the war, so I'm like, I'm ready to go.
Crack some heads open.
Yeah, crack these heads, and that's just being young and dumb, honestly. And I'm actually a little ashamed of it as I look back on it. So at first, I was ready. Let's go hands on. You ready to go? Let's go. I'm all game for it. And then you learn as you become more seasoned officer that you're not Superman.
Right.
And there's people that could whip your tail, and you're hurt out there, and you learn to calm down.
Right.
Yeah.
And then you look more for ways to de-escalate situations.
I got you.
Certain tactics like talking lower than what the person is and make them lean in and actually listen to you, and things of that nature to really try to avoid escalating it.
Sure. Want to speak to that, Ms. Ruth? Or?
I was going to say, well, in that type of situation, anyway, you always call for your 35, your backup.
Yeah.
You always have to call for your backup so that can de-escalate. And you can't just go into a situation all gun-ho and ready, because anything like this situation occurred could escalate and could cause a death of a human being.
Right. No, sir.
We spoke to the training, right? And that's what I wanted to also get to, because that's another thing we hear, and it's starting to sound like it's just something we're saying, because we're saying, well, maybe they should be retrained, but this is not an incident that happens with white men and white women. It only happens with black men. So what can we do? Because if we change the training, but the feelings of the officer is still that blacks are not as important, then what do we do? I know rioting isn't right. Uh, so what do we do? If once we get upset, once we get frustrated at seeing this over and over and over and over, how do we respond? What way do we respond?
Well, I think it's a societal issue, honestly. It's well before you ever put on a badge. The images that we see of young black men on TV, we see them portrayed as thugs, criminals all the time, pimps, or whatever the case may be. I think what we have to do is realize that all black men are not these things.
Right.
So a lot of us are fathers. A lot of us are sons. A lot of us want the same thing as everybody else want, which is to provide for our families and live in a safer environment with our children. And I think it's really a societal issue. I don't think it's just a law enforcement thing. I really think other races and even some of our own race view us in a certain way, view us in a negative light, and that comes with you throughout your whole life. So when you become a police officer, if you thought less of black people as a child, that's not going to change when you become an adult. That whatever in you is going to show. And I think that's what's going on a lot in law enforcement.
And to piggyback on that, I think like when you're looking for someone to be a law enforcement officer, first of all, you need to screen that person very, very carefully, because you say, you have a racist person. Now, that starts at the home anyway. Right. That starts from a mere child and coming up. So they need to screen them very carefully. Be careful who you put out there in a uniform, because a lot of people put the uniform on because it gives them power.
Yeah.
Black and white.
So to that, what do we do if the person that does the screening is that person that we're talking about? They've been raised a certain way. So when they hire, they're not looking for that to be gone, or they're not looking for somebody that don't have that in their heart. It actually probably is a plus to them.
Yeah.
So how do we do it? Because you spoke, like you said, that's a society issue, right? But the police are paid to protect and serve. So we have to be able to trust and call them when we have an issue, and then sometimes we end up being the victim in a situation. So what is it that, outside of, like you said, the screening part, what can we do as far as officers and the community being able to get some kind of understanding, or is that even possible for the community?
Like I said, they need to change the rules and regulations. You got people that are supervisors that are hiring these people. They are friends. Right. They know that they're coming to be a part of the JSO family or any law enforcement, service. So, like I said, they do need to screen them more careful. They need to have people. You got people like my training officer, 25 years old. They are actually sitting on the board, hiring these people. They need to have seasoned people that can best pick out and put the right fit, so they can put them out there on that street, so they won't get from all that. We're gonna always have racism, because that's something that is groomed in people. But they don't need to have people that just come on the force 5 years and say, okay, that candidate is a great candidate. If you keep doing it like that, and I know for a fact it happens, if you keep doing it like that, you'll always have failure as a police officer. Yeah.
And I think you guys hit the nail right on the head. I mean, because we can change the laws all we want to. Only God can change a person's heart. Yeah. And so we can change the law, we can legislate, and as I think both of you spoke to, I think you said the best, if it's in you, it's coming out of you. If you've been taught that, you've been bred that. And I think I want to be fair. I want to be fair because, yes, the police, to Angelo's point, yes, the police are paid to serve and protect. But I think a lot of times we should give them that. That's what they paid for. That's what our taxpayer dollars pay them. That ought to be the expectation. They put the badge on. They serve and protect. But I believe sometimes, if we're not careful as a people, we will put expectations on people that we don't meet ourselves. And so, and as you said, there's no videos of us, and I want to stay on the point. But at the same time, I understand we're talking to a broad audience, so I want to make sure we stay fair and balanced. But you know, there are no. I haven't seen any either of any officers killing any other races, any Caucasians, anything. It may be out. I'm sure it's happened. I'm sure it's happened somewhere. Don't send it to me because I don't want to see it. But I'm sure it's happened. But I haven't seen it. But then there is footage and there is videos of us doing things to one another, doing things to other races and things, and that's another point. That's another conversation. We're dealing with what we're dealing with. Right. But I guess if we're going to push that hard on law enforcement, that hard on the badge and those individuals to say this is what they're here for, they're supposed to serve and protect. Man, what greater bond should we have among people that look like me, people that fight the same fight? We understand the 45th and the Phoenix and all that. We come from similar situations. Why do we all of a sudden just forget about what's going on with us and then just put that type of expectation on law enforcement? And it should be, but I think it's a theme that runs around society. Now I'm a pastor, and as we've talked before on some of these pastors' perspective, and it's my perspective, so I'm gonna give it to you again. But as we've talked about before, when it comes down to Christians, and then not most importantly, but also case in point with pastors, people have put responsibility on me, and they should. To whom much is given, much is required. To where if I act out of character, Bernard back into my car, and I get out the car and I slam the door, and what are you doing? Are you blind? And I just go off on him. It's like, Pastor. But if he does it, it's like, man, that's that man's car. You get what I'm saying? So we have a double standard. We live in a double standard society, and police should protect. They should serve. They should be there for us, but so should we. And so my point is, because this is a Christian podcast and this is a Christian thing, so we got to work on changing individuals' hearts, working on individuals, and then still pushing, because there's going to be some people, and I really believe this, there are some people that's going to be birthed out of this. So there's going to be some people that's birthed, some movement that's going to be birthed out of this. That's going to help legislate some things, change some things, have some stricter laws concerning officers. If you happen to take somebody's life in the line of duty and it was not merited or warranted, you get automatic life or something like that, or the death penalty. We line you up. I'm just joking. But something. I believe something will be birthed out of this that'll make a person think twice about what's going on. But let's not act as if the enemy is not the badge. The enemy is not a white person. The enemy is not anybody of color. The enemy is the enemy of our soul, the devil himself. So we don't wrestle against flesh and blood and spiritual wickedness in high places. We wrestle against spiritual wickedness in high places, but at the same time, there's not a get out of jail free card for people who's supposed to look after us. So anybody want to chime in on that, or you just pick it back up, Angelo?
I think it's all boiled down to empathy.
Right.
We gotta have empathy for one another. Whether it's that boy on the street corner, you don't know what brought him to that point.
Right.
What brought him to the position. Why is he doing that?
Right.
That stuff, as officers, you could try to think about and try to be more empathetic.
Sure.
And on the reverse side, as you were saying, because there's some people they think they're lawyers because they looked up some stuff on Google or whatnot. So they're coming at you, and they're coming at you hard.
Yeah. Section 3444 says that I do not have to give you my ID.
And 95% of the time they're wrong, but
that's a whole nother podcast.
Yeah, it's a whole nother thing. But you don't know what that officer just went through as well. You don't know if he just came from a suicide scene with this kid that blew his head off.
Wow.
Or some of the god-awful things that officers have to deal with on a daily basis. And then they get back on patrol and they pull you over and you curse them out and go berserk on them. You don't know what they just came from.
Right.
So I think it's empathy from both parties.
That's good.
So,
I like that.
But isn't because you have that badge, you've taken the oath to move different.
Angelo ain't letting y'all off the hook. I don't care. He not gonna let y'all off the hook. But I'm gonna pick you back off. Go ahead on. I'm gonna pick him back off the hook. Go ahead.
Like you said, it's not the badge, but when you take that oath, you're swearing to something that I didn't swear to. Doesn't give me the right to do wrong, but I didn't swear to uphold the law. I never swore to protect and serve. You did. So is there more on the officer than it is the individuals that they're going to either arrest, check, what?
Well, yes, I agree with you on that because, like you said, I took that oath. You didn't beg me to take the oath. You didn't beg Miss Ruth to take the oath. And the officers took that oath knowing that you're going to go through stuff that most people never go through.
Right.
So yes, you're right. You have to hold yourself to a higher moral standard,
Right.
if you will, just like a pastor would, like you have to. And as an officer, you have to be honest with yourself. Are you able to deal with this type of pressure?
Right.
I think you got a lot of guys that's on the force that just can't be honest with themselves. Say, look, I'm not meant for this.
Right.
I need to go ahead and leave, go somewhere else. And honestly, that's the conclusion I came to. I was like, look, no, this is not for me, and I left. And I think the community's better for that, and I'm a better person for it, because if you're doing this, this is not the job. Being law enforcement is not the job that you could kind of halfway do. Right. It's not the job that your heart's halfway out of it.
Right.
If you have a half-hearted effort into law enforcement, that could get you killed.
Right.
You can harm somebody else.
Right.
If you're not in the right frame of mind, you could do all sorts of horrible things because you have a lot of power behind that badge. So I think a lot of law enforcement officers really need to look at themselves in the mirror and say, is this for me?
Right.
And if it's not, quit. Just walk away. Nobody's going to blame you for leaving.
And also, I'm going to piggyback on that again. The moment I took that badge and they placed that badge on my chest, I said to myself, I'm not going to let that badge determine who I am, because I know who I am. In other words, I didn't let the badge wear me. I wore the badge. Right. And I was there to protect and serve and do the best job that I can do.
Very good. And I'm coming to you, Angelo. But just as 100%, I agree 100% as what Bernard said, that we, as I've used myself as an example, that we have to live ourselves to a higher standard. But at the same time, I don't want to miss the point that as what you sprung board off of, saying it's empathy working both ways, and it's so easy for us to miss sight of that. And we got to deal with this. We got to talk about this issue. I said in a message, by the time this is aired, it'll be a couple of weeks ago. I said in the message, it kind of gets to me. Not necessarily get to me. I hear a lot of noise around this. You'll hear somebody say, Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter. Then somebody else will come back and say, all lives matter. And I get that. I get the mindset behind that. I get why people say that. And I agree 100%. I think everybody on this panel agree that Black Lives Matter and all lives matter. I think we all. I'm just joking. Hey, no, just kidding. You got to see what I saw. Do you see what I see? but anyway, we agree that all lives matter. But we have to deal with the issue, and so I'm trying to keep a balance, but at the same time, still keeping the conversation where we are. Because yes, as some people will even take issue with saying, well, all cops not bad, all cops this and that. But at the same time, we still have to deal with the issue at hand. And there's issues, and that was so good saying that maybe somebody got to reassess, reevaluate, think about, is this really for me? Right. Am I letting the badge wear me? Instead of me wearing the badge, do I really need to be a public servant? Am I allowing this to be something that I'm trying to help people, or I'm just trying to empower myself? So I love that. Go right ahead.
And this might be for all three of y'all. I want to know, when you spoke on empathy, is that something that we can teach someone who's grown up with hate in their heart and now they have a badge? Are they able to learn that? Are they able to have that in their heart? Or is it too late once you become an adult? You know the saying, you can't teach an old dog no trick. But is it possible for a 10-year cop, 10-year white male cop veteran to learn empathy after 10 years of being on the force without none?
I believe
Go ahead,
so.
because I'm go ahead.
Let me tell you, from experience, I know it can. Like I had the training officer I was the 25 years, my first. But the veteran, I had a officer, my second training officer had been on 25 years, and I know he was racist. And one day, when I came to work, got in his patrol car, and I was shocked to know that he just poured into me. He said, I've been racist for a long time. And I'm like, well, I felt you. You
Newsflash.
I say, but you know, I say, you know, I think you're pretty cool cat. I say you haven't given me a hard time yet, but I watch your mannerism, and I see how you do things. And one day he also asked me, he said, "Well, didn't you say you grew up in Moncrief?" I said, "Yeah, I grew up in Moncrief." He said, "How did you do it?" Because I don't think I could do it. I said, well, once you were there and you implanted and your parents lived there, I mean, it's all in the environment in which you live and everything. But, you know, I know he was a racist. He knew he was a racist. He never gave me a really hard time because he knew that I knew my stuff. But he changed. He changed. He really changed. I saw him, you know, outpour more in the community. You know, like we used to ride through Palm Terrace, and he used to always say, I hate going through Palm Terrace. I can't stand those people, and blah, 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 blah. And one day we happened to ride through Palm Terrace, and he went to the store and bought snacks and stuff for the kids in the neighborhood. And that's why I said people can change if you give them the opportunity.
I definitely think people could change. I mean, I changed. Any Christian has changed, really. Once you accept Christ in your heart, you die of old things, and I don't want to.
Watch out now. I'm finna back the bass man up. Yes, sir. I'm finna get my yes, sir.
So yes, I definitely believe, given your scenario, a 10-year white officer could definitely change and learn to get some empathy. It's just rather not if they want to change and soften their heart. And it sometimes takes for them to have different experiences and dealing with different type of folks and really understand, like, you know what, all these people are not bad. Not everybody that live in the hood, if you will, are thugs. Most people are just want to go to work, provide for their family, and live safe. We all want that. Right. And I think if they work in those environments and really open their hearts, they can really see that.
Right.
Sure.
Right.
I think we're so far behind on the scoreboard. I think we're so far gone. As I said, this is a problem in our society. Our mentality going into these situations have to be, if they don't change, we're gonna bring the change. And I think, and I say that because, and again, it can't be a double standard, because why are we rioting if there's not gonna be any change? Why are we having this conversation if it's not? Why are we preaching? I mean, I go find me a job somewhere. I mean, what are we doing? I get that, and I understand that. Yes, a person could be 10 years in, and this is the way they were raised, this is the way they you know, in their environment. But why do we do what we do? If we go into it with a mindset of saying, they not gonna ever get no better, that's not gonna change anything, then it won't. And you're exactly right. I believe it's a mindset. So our mindset has to be, of course, what it is now. We're not gonna allow this anymore. We're not going to stand for this anymore. We're going to do what we need to do. And so a person need to be empathetic. And if they don't be empathetic, we're going to do what we need to do and say that's it's unacceptable. It's got to be on both ends. So I think that we're so far gone, and things are so bad, and things are so detrimental to our kids, our sons and our daughters, our grandchildren, that we got to bring the change. Even if they don't want to change, you got to fake like you want to be empathetic or whatever. So I think it's, but to Bernard's point, I think it's possible. I mean, that's what salvation is.
So what, as African American citizens, can we do outside of the rioting? Because we say why we rioting, and I agree. It's not gonna get us anywhere. So like most people, I'm in between. I'm saying, man, we doing too much. That's a little extra. Right. But then at the same time, I'm saying, well, everything else didn't work either. So what do we do? Because history has shown us we've had peaceful protests.
Right.
And the dogs and the water hose got let out. Wow. So now the frustration in this generation has boiled over to slight violence.
Yes.
What can, as a man, and I'm interacting with a white cop, what can I do to lower my chances of a fatal encounter? What can I do? As far as you saying, trying to be the change, right? Because we've seen that every time a black man was killed, he wasn't doing anything violent. He wasn't doing anything criminal. The last video shows that. But we have multiple videos of innocent black men being killed. Right. So what do we do? Because every encounter ain't a criminal. Every encounter ain't somebody stealing something out the store and he got killed, and then they would say, well, you shouldn't have been doing that. We got people walking down the street, minding their business.
Minding their own
So
business.
let me ask you this. I know I don't want to say that because y'all said we can change. So what can we do outside of the rioting, outside of the protesting, and the legislation? All these things we've tried before. So what's something that we haven't tried that we can try?
Tougher laws and rules. As far as being a police officer, I think before you become a police officer, you need to go, I think people, they need to have a class on, you need to have a class on that, on a class on how you handle, because when I was coming along with Jacksonville Sheriff's Office, they didn't have that type of class. I think that needs to be put in place so that they can train these police officers, these persons coming on as being cops. You got young kids like the kid I'm saying, 25 years old. He grew up in the Mandarin, Bay Meadows. I mean, family had plenty of money. You just need to put tougher laws and rules in place so that you can meet the demand of the people. So this type of stuff won't happen to innocent people. They need to have training, in-depth training.
Is there a lack of black presence in the police force? And would that help if that increased? If we had more African American police officers, man or woman, do you think that would change, or would they just be molded into what's already going on?
Well, from what I see, when I came, it was an even amount. I think it's an even amount. It's the person that's running the show. Now that's the way I look at it. Say for instance, look at our president. Look who's running the country. I mean, that's why I say you got to put tougher rules and laws and rules in place so that these type of things won't happen to good people, men, women, what have you. So,
Can I go back to what you said? It was kind of like a two-part question. You asked one, what can you do to survive an encounter with a police officer? I tell my, it's unfortunately, I actually have drills with my sons like, well, this what you should do when if a police officer pulls you over or if you're encountered by one. I always say, show your hands. If they can see your hands, they can't claim he had a weapon or he had a gun or whatever. In case of, if you're getting pulled over, I say, and it is unfortunate we have to do this, but it is what it is. Right. I say, hands on your steering wheel. Right. Like I said earlier, make sure you always see your hand. Always. Be courteous and professional. Even if they're acting a fool, like I said earlier, you can't let anybody dictate how you act. Right. So even if that officer is being belligerent with you, okay, notate it. You could ask them freely, hey, I'd like to get your badge number or your ID number or whatever it is, and then you go through the process of filing a complaint against them. But what I advise against is going back and forth with him and arguing, because you're not going to win that battle. At that given moment, and not saying he's got nothing, but at that given moment, he does have the power to arrest you. Right. He has the power to beat you. He has the power to do a lot of stuff that we've seen on video, and there's really not much you could do about it in that moment. So I'll say survive that first encounter, and you go after him afterwards. Now, as far as what can we do, as far as remind me your second question. Let me make sure I got this right. You said something to the effect, what can we do as black people to? Because
we've tried to bring the change, we tried the legislation, we tried the riot, and we tried all that. So what do we do? You good?
All right. My thing is hit them in the pocketbook. Right. That will really bring change in our society, whether we like it or not. Look, if I know you're a racist establishment, or I know you support racists or anything like that, I'm not shopping at your area. I don't care if it's Gucci, I don't care if it's Polo, I don't care who you are. If it's the NFL, you can't stand behind our cause, and we can't stand with you with our money. Because at the end of the day, we say that we don't have a lot of power, but we spend trillions of dollars. Right. So you pull that out of any economy, what do you have? Right. So I would say hit them in the pocketbook, and then we could form our own stuff. I'll use the NFL for example again, because you heard the news about Drew Brees or whatnot. If the NFL don't want to act right, okay, we get a couple of our powerful guys together, and we'll form our own league. And that's that. And we'll keep our money in our own communities. Right. So I think really, if you really want change, get your money right and hit him in the pocketbook.
That's good. And there's an expression in Christendom that where I am I am to live like Jesus coming back tonight, and I'm to work like he's never coming back. I'm to live like he's coming back tonight. Tonight might be my last night, so I'm going to do the best I can, live for him, honor him, but at the same time, I'm going to work like he's never coming back. What do I mean by that? When we put tougher laws in, when we teach our sons very good information, keep your hands on the steering wheel, don't get combative with them, don't be argumentative, even when we hit them in their pocket, this is still a problem that it still exists. So at the end of the day, I feel like to answer your question, go along with what they've said, I think we have to learn to live between the tension. We don't live with it to say we're going to accept it. We're going to fight hard to be able to change, to put the laws in, hit them in their pocket, start our own league. If they don't, NFL don't take a stand with us, I've been hearing little rumors about that, NFL don't take a stand with us, why don't all the players get together and say, we're not coming back? We're not going to start the season. We're going to start a BFL, a black football league or whatever. I mean, whatever the case may be. But, yes, hit them in the pocket. But at the same time, we're still dealing with something that's in our hearts and something. So we got to learn to live between the tension. That's not saying, again, I want to be clear. It's not saying we just deal with it. It's not saying, oh, it is what it is, so whatever. But no, it starts with us teaching our children, training our children, with us bringing them up, saying, this is how we do. This is how you are. You love everybody. You don't see no color. And at the same time, if we got to hit them where the pocket's at, do what we need to do, but still fight for change. But I still got to be okay if you're racist. I still got to be okay with life. I still got to be okay with myself. I can't let anybody control me. So because you have this issue, because you have this problem, and because you don't know any better. And I understand that as you said, they got a lot of authority when they pull you over. They got a lot of authority in that interact. They control you, and you dial it down. But they got your life in your hands. I mean, they can do whatever they want to do, and I get that, and I understand that. But so I can walk out of here and step off the curb and a car hit me. That don't stop me from walking out this building. I can get on the plane and the plane can drop. I can go get me some food and get some food poisoning. That don't stop me from eating. But my point is, we learn how to live with these types of issues, these types of things in life, and we don't let it get us so like this, or we so shelled and so shriveled up, and at the same time we shouldn't be all belligerent. Thank you. That's a word of the show. We don't act all illy. If camera was there, we don't act all illy. But at the same time, we have to learn how to live between the tension. So my opening statement was this: that we got to, as we say in Christianity, we got to live like He coming back tonight. So we got to honor and love one another, treat one another right, do what we need to do, show love, badge, no badge, military, no military, black, white, blue, purple, Italian, Chinese, German, but at the same time, work like He's never coming back, meaning to push these laws and push this legislation and be able to hit them in their pocket if we need to. So I think that helps us be able to cope with what's going on, because it's going to be here. So it's got to help us cope. So we can change while we're coping at the same time.
Would you or anyone of y'all classify that what you talk about, how we're taught, as a source of trauma? Because as an African American male, that's brought up in the household. That's how you're raised when you're pulled over. Do this, do this. Right. So before your first encounter with the police, anyway, you're already trained that you might be treated a lot differently than everybody. Yeah. So even in the home, it's already instilled in you that you're different. They might treat you different, so you tense up as soon as the lights come on. Yeah. Is that trauma, and how do we deal with that? Is that a prayer thing? Is that us talking to the officers thing? How do we deal with that? And is it even is that even considered trauma that we have to live like that?
I would say that is considered trauma, because as a former police officer, and when I 51 someone that we pull somebody over. She's
dropping the terms on us tonight. Yes, sir. We
Yes, sir.
got a 51 over here on Dunn.
And then
51 over on Dunn Avenue. Call for what you call the backup? What you call them?
35.
Go get a 35. I need a 35 over here over here in the 404. What district you call? Let me give me a call together real quick. Hold on. Give me I got a 35, and I need some 35 backup. What you said?
At a 404?
Oh, 404. What district
51.
you call the district you working in? You call that a number two?
Oh, that was District 5.
District, I need the
Zone
35
5.
and zone,
Zone
5
5.
over in
Zone
there.
5.
Don't talk to Miss Ruth. You probably forgot your point now because I'm mess with you. She don't even know what she was doing. It was your trauma. It is trauma.
Yeah, it is trauma.
You messed me up. I'm traumatized now. I'm traumatized too because I know all these codes now. Got a 35 over here in District 4 or 5.
And believe it or not, a lot of black families they tell the kids that families have taught their kids to. I mean, they won't. They're not like Bernard said, put your hands on it. They don't tell you that. They just like you. I mean, they are afraid. That's trauma.
Yeah.
When you stop, I know because it was like when I pull people over, first thing I'm gonna say is my training kicks in. Good afternoon, blah blah. You have a tail light out. Show me your registration, your ID, your driver's license. And like I was saying earlier before we started, I pulled over several people. And I've let them go because, I mean, it didn't warrant me to get an arrest because you didn't have a driver's license. I would always say, just get it, fix it, and don't get on the street again until you get it, But a lot of people are traumatized by the police. I don't know what it is about the uniform that scares them. And I believe it's all the uniform with the gun and everything else on it. So they're traumatized about that. But when I became a police officer, my kids were small. My son was I couldn't even go to his graduation, kindergarten graduation, but my husband and the other kids were there. And my daughters were there. He was 6, and the twins were 9. I taught them, I started teaching them from, up. What to do, what to look for, how to act, what to do, what to see, things like that. Because I had to prepare my kids, but just because I was a police officer doesn't mean that there'll be another police officer out there that's going to traumatize my kids. Right. I wanted them to be prepared and ready for anything. So, and I taught my husband also, to look for, when you're out there driving, because people pull you over. Every cop ain't nice.
And I think to speak to what you asked, Angelo, as relates to the trauma, because you are having to be instilled, you have to be taught, you having to say, hey, this is what it is, and you're already, as my parents used to put it, you're already behind on the scoreboard. You're already behind on the scoreboard. You already got an X. I think they used to say exact words was already got an X because you're African American, you're X and because you're male and all that. And I believe that is a real thing. That is a real thing. The way you have this stigma. It does put a certain type of trauma. So I think we ought to address it. I think we ought to talk about it. I think we ought to deal with it. Work towards holistic healing. And I keep going back to my mentality and keep going back to my mind because let's try to find persons through life, in life, that hasn't experienced some type of trauma, some form of trauma. And this is a different type of trauma that we're speaking to because it's specific to our context. But I'm a crutch kicker, so I'm a crutch kicker, and so we have to understand that yes, it's something that I got to deal with. Yes, it's something that I may be traumatized. You said as soon as the police get behind me, and I've driven with suspended license before, so I know. You turn into. I think I'm a better driver with suspended license. I just believe I am. I'm just a better driver. When I know that tag expired, I am. So I got my seatbelt on. I got my 9 o'clock, 3 o'clock. I'm a review. I'm using all my mirrors exactly, turn signal and everything. I think so. Anyway, but the point is, so there is a level of fear. There's a level of apprehension that comes over you. Even when my license are good and the police officer get behind me. So I do think that's a particular form of trauma, but I don't think that ought to paralyze an individual because, who has to be African American? Who has to be male? Who has to be whomever? We're born in this. We're born in this, and this is the hand that we've been dealt, and I got to learn how to win even with a bad hand. I still can be able to do what it is I need to do.
I dealt with trauma before, whether it's from the war or just growing up, whatever. And one thing is going to sound cliche, and people are going to say, oh, here we go again. But the truth of the matter is, prayer helped me a lot.
Here we go again.
Here we go.
I'm joking.
Here we go again.
Amen. I got you.
But a lot of times you have to pray about it and put it on the altar. Because you cannot let whatever trauma you went through, whether it's being raped, whether it's being beat up as a child, or whether seeing bodies in a war zone.
Right.
You have to be able to pray about it. Now, also, I believe in prayer, but I also believe in seeking professional help as well.
Amen.
Right.
So don't get
Amen.
it twisted here. Pray about it,
Amen.
and then go seek the professional help that you need
Amen.
to
Amen.
to make yourself whole.
Amen.
Yeah, we can't, as Pastor said, we can't let our past traumas hinder us for doing what we need to do.
Sure.
in our
Amen.
lives.
Very good.
Going forward, and not just for the Floyd family, but particular them. What's a good way for them to start to move on? Because once again, there's other members in their family that's gonna have encounters with police, and this might happen, or this incident might come to mind. What's some of the things that they could do, and other families experiencing this? What can they do to start to heal and move on, and be able to go through life without this being a crutch?
Well, and look, I could imagine this happen to one of my children. So this is easier said than done.
Right.
But I will say you have to first get forgiveness. I think in order for you to move on from anything, you have to forgive the person that harmed you or who done wrong to you. And once you are able to do that, then you could go seek the professional help. Then you can sit there and pray about it. And prayer may also help you forgive the person. And for them, I mean, now look, seek justice. Make no mistake about it. I'm not saying forgive them and say, okay, now that's it. No, you try to get the best lawyers, try to get the support of others, and go after those officers. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, put them in prison for the rest of their lives, that did that. So yeah, seek justice. So don't get me wrong, seek justice, but I think it begins with forgiveness. You gotta learn to forgive.
And y'all got to tune in to episode 3, where we discuss forgiveness.
That's right. Amen.
Hey, there we go.
Ms. Ruth? You good? All right. Ms. Ruth said, I want to shoot somebody. So,
Like I say, easier said than done.
Right.
Right. Well, we definitely thank y'all and appreciate y'all for giving us some insight and some background on you. And thank you, and hopefully we can have y'all again under some different circumstances. Thank you.
Well, I appreciate it, and thank you for affording me this wonderful and great opportunity, sir.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. And thank you, Pastor, for giving us your perspective also on the Pastor's Perspective podcast.
hey, I'm glad somebody care about my perspective. So,
And thank you, TIL Nation, for tuning in to this episode. And we will see you next Monday. Here comes the church.
peace out.